Imagine you're an employee in China, a young Beijing programmer, getting an opportunity you believe will change your life. You've just been accepted into Baidu, a leading Chinese tech company, high salary, good benefits, working in a large corporation. All of it is a dream for a recent graduate, but there's one thing you didn't expect. From that day on, your life no longer belongs to you. Every day at 9 a.m., you enter the office, where hundreds of computers are already brightly lit, with colleagues busily working in front of their screens. Work consumes you so quickly that lunch is just a cold boxed meal eaten right at your desk. At 9 p.m., you stand up and stretch, but no one leaves. You hesitate, looking around. If you go home now, will the boss consider you lazy? A colleague pats you on the shoulder and laughs. Welcome to the 996 Club, comrade. From then on, your life is swallowed up by work. 6 days a week, you work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Initially, you think you just need to try hard for a few years, and then there will be opportunities for promotion, to earn more money, and to rest. But then a year passes, 2 years pass, old friends are no longer seen, and family can only be talked to in rushed phone calls. You no longer have time to care for yourself. But it's not just you. All of China is changing. Welcome to the 996 culture machine, the sleepless workplace of China. 9996 is a term used to describe a working model common in China, where employees must work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. Specifically, the total number of working hours reaches 72 hours per week, which is almost double the international standard. In many countries, the standard regulated working schedule is usually 40 hours per week, with 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Meanwhile, the 996 model extends that time considerably, but many companies don't pay overtime, or they find ways to circumvent the law to avoid violating labor policies. Look at a company like Jack Ma's Alibaba. When it was a small startup among thousands of other companies, Alibaba needed a breakthrough. Instead of working regular office hours, Jack Ma encouraged employees to work like crazy, and as a result, Alibaba developed rapidly, becoming a leading e-commerce giant in the world. Jack Ma once declared 996 a blessing. If you want to join Alibaba, you should be prepared to work 12 hours a day. Otherwise, why would we need you? His words were like a declaration for the entire technology industry of China. Other CEOs also agreed, but is 996 really a blessing, or just a way to legitimize squeezing the labor of employees? For many tech employees, 996 is like an invisible handcuff. Initially, they accept it because of the attractive salary. After all, everyone works for money, for the dream of changing their lives. But gradually, they realize this isn't just a job, this is their life. The peak of resentment came in 2019 when a group of programmers created the website 996.icu, which roughly translates to working 9996 ends in the ICU. This website attracted millions of visits, with thousands of stories about employees who were exhausted, had strokes, or even died from overwork. The Chinese government finally intervened. In 2021, the Supreme People's Court of China declared 996 illegal. But in reality, what happens? Many companies just changed the name to Big Small Week, meaning working 6 days a week, but every other week there will be a day off. In essence, it hasn't changed. It's just a change to circumvent the law. Perhaps many people would think that the Chinese are very good at exploitation, but you're mistaken because it's not only the Chinese. When 996 is mentioned, many people immediately think of China, where tech giants like Alibaba, Tencent, Huawei, and JD.com force employees to work like tireless machines. But the truth is that 996 is not a specialty of China alone, but a global phenomenon, appearing in many developed economies like Japan, Korea, the US, and even Europe. Imagine a young employee in Tokyo and many other employees in Japan. They all have one thing in common: working to the point of forgetting to eat and sleep, with no personal life. Perhaps if 996 is a disease, it's spreading with alarming speed across the globe. Before China had 996, Japan already had a concept called karoshi, a term that can be understood as death from overwork. This word appeared in the 1970s when the Japanese economy was developing and booming after World War II. At that time, large corporations like Toyota, Sony, and Mitsubishi became symbols of prosperity, but behind that glory were employees working from morning till night. Many people collapsed right in the office. Look at the story of Matsuri Takahashi, a young female employee of Dentsu, one of the largest advertising corporations in Japan. Each week she worked over 100 hours, to the point where she had no time to sleep. On Christmas Eve 2015, she passed away, leaving behind a desperate message: why is life so difficult? This incident shook Japan, forcing the government to intervene. But even though labor laws may have changed, the working culture in Japan is not easy to change. Here, people believe that staying at the company until late is a sign of dedication, and arriving at work later than the boss is considered disrespectful. This creates a working environment where everyone strains themselves to exhaustion just to show they're a dedicated employee. If you think Japan works a lot, then think about South Korea. Before 2018, Korean employees could have to work up to 68 hours each week, almost equal to the 996 model of China. The government then had to cut the maximum number of working hours down to 52 hours per week. But in reality, many people still work overtime, completely without pay. In South Korea, the culture of nunchi, loosely understood as reading the boss's mind, makes employees afraid to go home early for fear of being seen as lacking a sense of responsibility. This is especially common in the technology, finance, and manufacturing industries. Corporations like Samsung, Hyundai, and LG are known for being strict with employees, and many have never left the office before 10 p.m. Take the example of Kim Min-ji, a name that sounds like a soccer player. He is a bank employee in Seoul. He arrives at the office at 7 a.m. and usually doesn't leave before 10 p.m. And on weekends, he still has to do reports and answer emails. Once I fainted at my desk, Kim Min-ji recounted, but when I woke up, I just drank a cup of coffee and continued working. Because everyone is like that. Who dares to complain? That's just one example. And sometimes people don't even believe this name is real, but it's a typical South Korean case. If you think that the West has more relaxed working hours, think again. In the US, especially in the finance and technology industries, 996 not only exists, but it's also a standard for success. Meanwhile, in Silicon Valley, corporations like Google, Apple, Amazon, and Tesla also have a working culture that is no less fierce. Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, once said, "If you only work 40 hours per week, don't expect to change the world." Here, working 12 to 14 hours a day is normal. Many employees even sleep right in the office because they know that if they don't do it, someone else will be willing to replace them. People often think that Europe has an ideal working system with regulations of only 35 to 40 hours per week. And many countries like France, Germany, and the Netherlands even allow employees to turn off work emails outside of business hours. But this doesn't mean that 996 doesn't exist. In strategic consulting companies like McKinsey, BCG, and Bain, low-level employees have to work about 70 to 90 hours each week to keep up with project deadlines. Many tech startups in London and Berlin are also starting to copy the all-out working model of Silicon Valley. Despite being heavily criticized, 996 still exists because many companies believe that it creates higher productivity. But increasingly, more young people are refusing to race with this intensity of work. In China, the lying flat movement encourages young people to slow down, work less, love more, and enjoy life instead of dedicating themselves to work. In Japan, Korea, and the US, the wave of protest against overwork is growing. Governments and companies are also beginning to realize that if employees are exhausted, long-term performance will decrease. Some companies have experimented with a 4-day work week or allowed employees to have more control over their working hours. However, as long as there are people willing to work non-stop to pursue the dream of success, 996 will never truly disappear. The question is, are you willing to confront and trade your health, youth, and personal life to chase after 996, or will you choose a different path? Leave your opinion. Is work everything to you or not? Thanks for your interest in following this story.